Hello and welcome to Camnp Xbox. A little bit ago, we covered every Xbox launch title specifically coming out on November 15th, 2001. Today, I want to cover what else came out in 2001, so everything that came out after the 15th of November that year. I find that launch titles are important, but consistently good releases afterwards help shape the console's momentum. So let's check them out and see how they hold up. All footage was captured on an original Xbox, and I want to thank my YouTube channel members for their support. But let's go ahead and hop into this one. On November 18th, we got F1 2001. This was developed by EA UK for the Xbox and published by EA Sports. First, all of my release dates are sourced from Moby Games. Not all these games have consistent release dates everywhere. So I stuck with Moby, which I do like, but still, even there, I found that there was a few mistakes. However, I will say, never trust Wikipedia on release dates. Wikipedia lists NBA Live 2002 as a launch title, which is completely wrong, and there is no source for this claim on Wikipedia. And it claims the same thing for Star Wars Starfighter, which is also wrong, and the source that it links to just says that it will release around launch. So I'd say never ever trust Wikipedia on dates. But that was my moment to complain a little bit, but let's get into F1 2001, which is a simple Formula 1 racing game. I'm not an expert on the sport, but I do like racing games, so this one speaks to me in some way. I think this is a solid racer, and though not the best of 2001, it still scratches a nice itch. It's formula racing, so don't expect a whole mix of different cars or weird tracks. What you get here is realism, and what's on display is handled well. The cars and tracks all look good, and though the frame rate is a little iffy, I never found it distracting. It's a clean-looking racer with nice cars, good lighting, and nice tracks. Handling in this game is well done. You have a really nice sense of speed, and you feel like you're flying down the track. Braking is responsive, and so is turning. Cutting corners and passing all feels great, and it makes for a good time. Also, the amount of camera angles to drive with is nice, and it features a really solid cockpit view. I think that hitting other cars looks and feels a bit cartoony and silly, but if you want a simple feeling racer with no frills, this isn't a bad choice. Throw in that this game has a nice career mode with unlockables, and surprisingly, you don't get everything right out of the gate with this one, and you have to work towards unlocking stuff, which I feel like you don't see a lot of in EA Sports titles at this time. I think I would have enjoyed a more simulation-based career mode with an in-depth player creation, but it's not going for anything that deep, and that's fine. It does feature a surprisingly good trance soundtrack as well, which is an odd but really nice touch. I'd say overall I had fun with this title, nothing groundbreaking, but solid for F1 fans in 2001. On November 19th, we got NBA Live 2002, developed and published by EA. As usual, I have to say I'm no expert on basketball, but I know how it works. And there are plenty of good basketball games. NBA Live, much like the Formula 1 game and other sports games I'm talking about today, is basic. It doesn't have many modes or a lot going on, but it's fun. The game features simulation and arcade modes, and the only significant differences between these modes is that fouls are not really present in the arcade mode. And that's extremely fun in itself, because I had a blast just swatting basketballs right out of players' hands. Both modes of play are similar and straightforward though. There's no complex analog inputs, it's as easy as tapping a button to pass and shoot. It makes for a basketball game not bogged down by mechanics, but elevated by its simplicity. I do wish that the franchise mode was a little deeper, since this one is very basic. There isn't much else going on here unless you want to hop straight into a game. It feels like a game meant to be played with multiple people, and if you pulled this out at a party, you'd be in for a good time. The controls are solid and the movement is fast. Dunking and shooting all work well here. It has a great pace that gives it a strong energy, which a game like this needs, especially in its arcade mode, where everything is allowed and it leads to all-out chaos. It also looks great for 2001. The animations and character models are smooth, and it doesn't feel like a copy and paste from an earlier generation. It looks crisp on the Xbox. I love the camera here too, with dynamic shots of all your dunks, and it's a good-looking and well-put-together basketball game. And another small note, I think the music in the menus is surprisingly good. All coming together in the menus because EA Sports always had really nice and simple menus at this time. There's honestly not a lot to unpack or say here, besides it's an easy-to-play, solid sports game. To me, this was the surprise hit of this lineup. I had zero expectations for it, and I ended up playing more games than I had planned. If you like basketball, this really isn't a bad choice.
No, Petit grabs the rebound in the first quarter. Stolen.
The same day, we got Kabuki Warriors. This was developed and published by Genki in Japan, but it was published by Crave in America. Kabuki Warriors is one of those infamous bad games on the Xbox, and even with years of releases after, it's still one of the lowest rated Xbox games according to Metacritic. It even has a famous review where a writer claimed to have won a match by slamming the controller against his butt. Is this game as bad as they claim? Not really, but it's not a good game either. For me, it feels like a game that exists on its charm. It's based on Kabuki theater, which is traditional Japanese stage shows. So stages are flat and look like stage productions, and there's characters with traditional makeup, and then there's traditional Japanese music as well, which I think is pretty good. There is something decent here, but the game truly is far too easy. It's so easy to win matches in the main story mode, and when you move up in difficulty, the enemies only block a little bit more, and this makes the fights dull, and then makes for a very uninteresting experience. There's not much else going on in this package either, with hardly any modes to look at, making for a game that survives solely on its multiplayer, which out of everything at launch and listed today, you could do much better. I don't think the fighting is bad, it's extremely simple, and in a tougher game or a multiplayer, it could be fun. All attacks are done with one button, and you can jump, throw, and block. I do think the idea of it being a simple fighter is cool, it's fun and lowers the skill level to enter, but it never asks you to really hone these skills, because the idea is that it's simple to play, hard to master, but you don't get that here. I do, however, like the money system where you move from town to town, getting new members of your troupe, and building up a great acting trio. It's a really nice way to bring in the Kabuki theme into the story. It's an odd concept, but I like a bit of ambition and weirdness. I think that's why I don't hate this game, it just needs a better single-player experience. Also, to add, the sound effects are brutally annoying in this game with constant repetition. It's not the worst of the worst, and honestly, it's a notable oddity out of the bunch of games today, but it could be a lot better. On November 20th, we got Amped Freestyle Snowboarding, developed by Salt Lake Game Studios and published by Microsoft Game Studios. This is the Xbox exclusive start to the Amped series, and to me, it stands out as one of the stars of 2001. It also holds nostalgic appeal for me because I played the demo and loved it so much that I went out and got a copy. I still think it holds up to this day. It's not really aiming for the goal-oriented style of Tony Hawk-styled extreme sports games. It's focused on earning points from moves and capturing great pictures over specific areas. In this game, you choose a hill and you snowboard down it, taking jumps to perform flips and grabs, and grinding on rails to combine these actions together to reach a high score. The controls are excellent, and though they would later be refined, they still work fantastically here. Shredding in the snow and flipping in the air feels intuitive and fun. All of the courses are laid out in such a great way, and it makes them unique and it allows for some fantastic lines to string combos together. You can also unlock sponsor challenges that ask you to perform only one type of stunt. And then there are pro challenges where you must match the line of a pro in front of you and replicate their tricks. These add nice variety, but don't deviate that far from the core gameplay, which is excellent. The first Amped game does have some collision issues, but seriously, that's the only major problem here. It looks fantastic for a 2001 game and is one of those early titles that showcases the power of the Xbox. Your snowboard digs into the snow rather than just being a blank white sheet. The draw distance of the mountains is impressive, and the environments themselves are well designed and full. It's one of the best looking games of the bunch today. Also, if you enjoy early 2000s or late 90s punk rock, this will be right up your alley. with some awesome nostalgic tunes. All around, Amped captures that early 2000s extreme sports feeling without feeling like a deviation from Tony Hawk. It's a blast and feels awesome to play, and I think it's an essential pickup for anyone who has an original Xbox. On November 28th, we got Azurik: Rise of Perathia, developed by Adrainium Games and published by Microsoft Game Studios. Azurik is such an interesting and forgotten early Xbox title, a title with huge scope, lots of promise, and critically failed. But it does have quite a following. It's an open-world action RPG. You play as Azurik and you travel across this world, going to different elemental areas. There is a plot, but Azurik seems more focused on exploring its world rather than explaining it, having you trek across the gigantic game, collecting so many items and fighting creatures. When I talk about this game feeling gigantic, I really mean it. Vistas are huge and distances go out forever. It's such an impressive feat on the Xbox, and I think the CG look here is charming. The greens and mountains are captured beautifully, and it makes me nostalgic even though I never played this game when it was new. Though this game isn't without its issues, with frame rate problems and some poor lighting in interiors and caves. That's my thing with Azurik. It's filled with so much charm, but does have problems. For one, this game is huge and does not hold your hand, which I think is fun, but also it's cryptic to the point where you really need some type of guide. This game is confusingly layered and sometimes it's easy to get lost. Not only that, but the combat is kind of a mixed bag. At times it's fun, but at others it just feels a bit bland, though the mixing and matching of the elements is a great feature. It's one of those games that's a hit for me just based on ambition alone. Despite its issues, its look can be breathtaking in the context of its time, and I love the dedication to not holding your hand and just letting you discover things. Also, Jeremy Soul's soundtrack is excellent, feeling bombastic and huge, perfectly matching the fantasy adventure tone. It's a game about developing your own adventure, and in a way kind of reminds me of Morrowind on the same console. Though not quite as deep, it still manages to capture an old-school adventure spirit that charms me. It's one of the most interesting Xbox games, and I think it's worth trying just to see it's something that you can get into. On November 30th, we got Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2, which was developed by Z-Axis and published by Acclaim. Unlike Amped, this is a BMX game that is closer in line with the Tony Hawk games. However, it does enough different to where it doesn't feel like a complete ripoff by any means. And if you're interested, I do have a full review of this one on the channel. In this game, you pick from a selection of BMXers and you go through different levels and complete goals. Though the goals are split by difficulty, where you unlock the harder ones the more goals you do. It's a smart setup, but I felt that a lot of goals were either too simple or too exploratory. See, my biggest issue with this game is the size of it. These levels are huge, which was impressive for the time, but they're bland because of it. Tony Hawk works because it's tight and full of things to do, rather than this, which is wide and has a lot of nothing special. There's a level where goals ask you to find a certain warehouse in a sea of the same looking warehouses, and it's moments like these that stick in my mind. It's not a bad game though, because the controls are good. I think the trick system has a lot of depth and it feels great to use. Comboing different moves is solid, and when the goals ask you to actually combo things, it's fun. Though the goals don't really ask you to do that a lot. Some of the levels are great though, with an awesome parking garage level that uses a lot of verticality, having you drop in from crazy heights. It's another mixed bag of a game, with some things that are bad and some that are good. The music and visuals are good at least. I love the different picks here with Black Sabbath, Sublime, and A Tribe Called Quest popping up. It's a great slice of music from the time. Also, the Xbox as well as the GameCube features 2 exclusive levels, and they happen to be some of the best levels in the game, with Greenville and Venice. Venice in particular has you hopping around the water and into boats, and it's unique and fun. And this game certainly has its fans. It's not bad, but there's a bit too many issues for me to fully enjoy it. Next up, we have MX 2002 featuring Ricky Carmichael on December 4th. This was developed by Pacific Coast Power and Light and published by THQ. This is a motocross racing game, and I'm realizing just how many games today that we're talking about are sports titles. I do like a good racing game, and I think there is a fun one here. And this is another game that just feels simple. Though you do get a nice career mode here, where you rise through the ranks and you unlock more races, which is a nice way to tie everything together. Here you ride on your bike, and you either gain points in a freestyle stunt mode, or you just race. Freestyle mode isn't bad. It has you doing tricks in simple arenas, yet the racing is the best part here. The bike controls here are good, turning feels great, and jumping on hills is a blast. There's a solid amount of tracks in this game, and all of them work for different skill levels. I thought all were designed well, and featured enough variety to make sure the gameplay didn't grow stagnant. My one issue though is that it's not a great looking game. To me, this looks like a holdover from the PS1 era, and even if it runs at 480p, I found the textures stretched and blurry. It feels a bit old for 2001, and when you have other great looking Xbox games in 2001, this one just doesn't compete. Though graphics are not everything, and this game is at least entertaining. I found myself racing through these courses with some solid AI, turning tight corners, and bailing, all around to be a satisfying experience. It has a nice multiplayer component, though it might not have amazing visuals. I think the gameplay helps this one stand out. On November 30th, we got Simpsons Road Rage. This is published by Fox Interactive and EA, and developed by Radical Entertainment. I don't think I've ever had the chance to talk about The Simpsons on the channel before, but let me say I love The Simpsons, and I have for a very long time. I remember getting the Platinum Hits version of this game on Christmas, and I played the crap out of it forever. So I do have a little bias here, though I won't say it's amazing, but I do think it is great fun. Literally ripping off Crazy Taxi to the point of reaching a lawsuit, this game is exactly Crazy Taxi. Is that a bad thing though? No, not really. Crazy Taxi is a proven formula of you riding around the town, taking people to their destinations, and trying to stay under time. It's fast and arcadey, asking you to beat your scores over and over again. Though I do think Road Rage has a bit more than that to make it stand out, allowing you to explore a ton of locales within the Simpsons universe and having a ton of drivers to unlock, all with voice lines, which do repeat a lot, and that gets a little annoying, but then it kind of circles around to being funny again. The core gameplay feels great here though. Cars whip and move quickly all around, and it's great to play. However, my favorite part is just exploring different parts of Springfield. Starting off in Evergreen Terrace, you begin to map out the town, seeing the old folks home and the Quickie Mart, and I get so much joy from exploring these cartoon spaces that have existed in pop culture just mainly through television. I also love going to the downtown area, the entertainment district, which brings the Simpsons world more to life. Taking these places and putting them into a video game for you to explore was perfected in Hit and Run, but this is a different style of game, and I think it's worthy to play as well. It's easy to pick up and play and take breaks. It's simple enough to understand if you've never played it before, and this one is a gem out of the lineup of games today.
It's crashing time!
Moe's Tavern, please. I need some grog before we hit the high seas. Yar.
Oh, can I come?
Call me Ishmael. And late.
On December 10th, we got Batman Vengeance, developed and published by Ubisoft. This is based on the new Batman Adventures show, a continuation of the great Batman animated series. This features the same voice actors, some of the best in the business, which is a massive plus for this game right from the outset. This third-person action game has you traveling on rooftops, fighting villains, and using gadgets all across the different locales of Gotham City. And my favorite thing is that it recreates the animated show well. Characters and locations lack detail and are very dark, but it has the edge that the cartoon has and the same color scheme. It comes to life here, and it's one of the best looking representations of the show in 3D gaming, and it looks amazing and crisp on the Xbox. I won't say the gameplay is amazing though. It does play a lot like other third-person action games of the era, but it's still entertaining. You'll spend most of this game beating up bad guys that come at you, and the fighting system is simple and easy to use. You just hit a few buttons and you knock guys to the ground. Though one cool touch is that you have to handcuff people on the ground to prevent them from getting up off the ground, making fights a tiny bit more strategic. Another fun element is that you can swap between first and third person, and some gadgets pretty much require you to use it in the first person. I particularly like the grapple gun where you have to search around and find new points to jump to. The camera is a bit sensitive in this mode though, and I don't love the jumping in this game. It's a bit stiff and rigid, though this game is still completely playable. And if you're a Batman fan, this one is definitely worth checking out, especially for the dark mood and the large mix of villains that you face off against. For story, voice acting, and looks alone, it's a great comic book game. I always enjoyed this one despite its flaws, and it's a solid part of this lineup. On the same day, we got SSX Tricky, the sequel to the PS2 exclusive SSX, developed and published by EA. This is going to be a weird thing to say because I know there is a ton of love for these games on Retro YouTube, but I never played any of these in their prime. Not because I wasn't interested, I just never got around to them till recently. So I don't really have nostalgia for this series. That isn't a bad thing though, because this arcade snowboarding game is a great time. In this game, you get a wide range of wacky characters and you race down different mountains. All are steep slopes with a ton of jumps for you to trick off of. This game is all about its tricks, asking you to put in a bunch of different button combinations to pull off some insane stuff in the air. I like that this extreme sports game stands out in 2001, much like Amped, because it doesn't riff on Tony Hawk, and it's its own thing, working more as a racing game than anything, asking you to go as fast as possible down hills and weave around your competitors, which all have great voice lines, and that makes them stand out. The controls here are very good, but also simple. Gliding down hills is a breeze, and the way speed is captured here makes it feel like you are blazingly fast. It leads to some incredible races, and it all feels smooth. It helps that the graphics are colorful and simple, going for an overly cartoony, bright look. That's perfect for the over-the-top feeling that this game is going for, overall making this a very distinct experience, which makes sense as to why people still bring this one up to this day. Throw in some nice touches like a skill system and a lot of unlockables, and you have something with a lot of replay value baked into it. Also, it has to be said that the music is excellent in this game too. It's such a fun concept, and it's understandable why this series has stood the test of time. It's a blast, and it's one of those standouts in the collection of post-launch games.
Man, I'm good!
Next up, we have a hockey game with NHL 2001, developed and published by EA. EA really showed up in 2001 with a ton of games to pick from, though it is mostly sports releases. Once again, I don't have a lot of knowledge on the sport of hockey, but I do know how it's played, and if it's at least fun, I'll get some enjoyment out of it. And NHL 2001 is a great playing hockey game. Much like NBA Live 2001, I was surprised by just how much fun I was having with this one. It's going for less of a simulation approach, and it feels very arcadey, offering simple controls to make sure it's easy to pick up and play. And there's a nice speed here. Traveling across the rink and shooting is fast, and there's a lot of energy. If you like hockey games, then I would say this one is worth trying. I'm sure it's not too different from all the other hockey games of the time, but it does feel good to play. I can imagine sitting around with some friends and having a great time. I do, however, wish there was a lot more to do here. There's no franchise mode and only offers a seasonal mode. There's no RPG-like experience or franchise tracking style game, which I always look forward to in sports games. Building rosters and teams makes it fully fleshed out for me. There really isn't a lot to do in this game in general, so you might do better playing a later NHL game if you're looking for a more substantial feature-filled package. I do like that this game does have you collecting trading cards for your binder by completing small goals, acting like an early achievement system. It also looks great for 2001 with a nice sleek style to the characters and locations. It's bright, nice looking, fast, and easy to play. It's not a huge standout, but I do think it is at least a good time. I was pleasantly surprised by this one, and I'm excited to get deeper in the hockey games the more I continue this channel.
Carefully, and you'll be kicking some hockey butt in no time. Here's the first hit. To win the upcoming face-off or any other future face-off, press the pass. Scores! When your tender's letting in shots like that, it's often a good idea to ask him what exactly he thinks he's doing.
On December 17th, we got Max Payne. This was developed by Remedy and published on console by Rockstar. I did a review on this one a while ago, and Max Payne is one of those games that sticks with you. A unique type of game that stands out on the console in 2001, working as an artistic vision that has staying power, which shows you as to why this game and the character have stuck around for so long in the minds of many gamers. In this game, you play as Max Payne in a comic book-styled world. You're a detective and you try to solve the murder of your family. This game gets you twisted in a deep, dark circle that gets insane in its finale. Maybe a bit too insane, but it is a fun ride. For most of the runtime, it has a noirish feeling that is unique to this title. Not feeling like a classic detective movie, but more like a mix of that and a 90s dark indie comic. It's gritty and Max Payne's voice is awesome. The character model itself is also iconic. The big thing about this game was its bullet time mode, which at this point in time hadn't been overdone. You have a slew of weapons from pistols to shotguns, and you can slow down time and shoot down enemies. The combat is very reactive, and shooting has a good feedback to it. Jumping around and getting the perfect shot in the game looks and feels great. But that's the only real issue. I love the slow cinematics that happen after every gun battle. I also love the look of this game. It's not an incredibly realistic game, but old school PC style graphics like this have such a charm to it. Faces have a distinct look and the environments look crisp with no After Effects plastered onto it. The environments just feature so much detail in general, like a hotel level with a ton of soda machines and TVs. I love small worlds packed with detail, and that's exactly what you get in this game. It's fun to shoot and run around all over this game, and it has a very interesting story. Definitely a full package in 2001.
You're asking for it. Hey, you!
Looking for Alex, they had ended up in the middle of a big-time crime operation.
On December 18th, we got Star Wars Starfighter. The dates are a little funky on this one, but it is not a launch title. This was published by LucasArts and developed for Xbox by Secret Level. The Xbox version is considered a special edition featuring better graphics and an upgraded multiplayer mode, which is a fun addition because it came out later than the PS2 release. The game has an interesting plot following multiple characters. The game centers around the plot of the movie The Phantom Menace, shedding light on the invasion of Naboo. You are going to see a lot of the same aesthetics as the movie, with a lot of the ships from the movies popping up. Say what you will about the first movie, but I think its aesthetics are sleek and exciting. I also feel that the surrounding plot is a good basis for the game. The plot works, and I like that you swap characters and you get to try many different things. The voice acting on everybody is solid as well. This is an arcade flight game, meaning you will fly your ship in open areas and shoot at other spacecrafts. It has simple and arcadey controls, and don't expect anything complicated. All you need to do is aim and shoot and have a good time. It controls smoothly with flying, moving, and shooting all being intuitive and easy to use. The battles are usually simple, like shooting down enemies, but it stays fun the entire time. Luckily, there is mission variety where you must protect ships or take down different constructs or bases on planets. They are all simple, and there's something about this simplicity that makes this addicting and fun. It looks great too for 2001 on the Xbox. The planets are solid with some really good lighting and areas to look at. The CG cutscenes are solid for their time as well, and the ships are sleek. The sound of guns firing and the signature Star Wars music makes this game feel nostalgic as well. It's a solid Star Wars game for the console. On December 20th, we got Silent Hill 2 Restless Dreams, published by Konami and developed by Team Silent. This is a survival horror game that defined the genre and has gone on to be one of the most highly regarded games ever, and is one of my all-time favorite games. I do want to dispel one myth before we get into this, but I see this all the time that this game has Xbox exclusive features, and that's not true. It did when it was released. It does feature an additional mode called Born from a Wish, which is not in the PS2 base version, and it was marketed as being only on the Xbox when it released, but all the extra stuff from this was included in the greatest hits version of the PS2 release, so that content isn't Xbox exclusive. Not that that means anything, because this game is amazing. You play as James Sunderland, who goes to the town of Silent Hill to find his wife who has passed away. In this fog-ridden town, you uncover the hidden secrets of the city. While running into disgusting creatures, mixing both combat and exploration, this game does a good job of holding a tense feeling. Things peeking out from the fog and absurd story moments makes it all so unsettling. It can be very avant-garde, and it's inspired by the works of David Lynch, and it holds a great sense of unease that is hard to look away from. It's not just scary though, but also depressing, exploring themes of guilt and self-doubt and how that materializes in Silent Hill. An introspective journey you don't see enough in gaming. The gameplay is solid with you running around town, and it asks you to explore every nook and cranny. It's a small town, but there's always something to look at and see. It's one of the most memorable places you can go to in gaming. I also have to talk about how incredible the soundtrack in this game is, composed by Akira Yamaoka, who does an incredible job. Taking genres from all over the place, with not only eerie ambient music, but modern for the time trip-hop, making a mix of catchy tunes and creepiness, which makes it all the more unsettling. Silent Hill 2 is just one of those special games, and it's great that it came to the Xbox.
Is it dead? What the hell is it? It's not human.
On December 21st, we got another Star Wars game, Star Wars Obi-Wan, an Xbox exclusive developed and published by LucasArts. Another game set around Phantom Menace, which is a very interesting period of time where people loved Star Wars and there was this high fever for new movies. It wasn't until, I would say, a little bit later that Phantom Menace started to get hated quite as much as it did now, even though a lot of people have kind of reclaimed that one, giving this movie a wild critical reception history, which is similar to this game, which was regularly trashed upon release, but now I feel has made a little bit of a comeback. Personally, I find it to be a very fun game, but flawed. First off, you play as Obi-Wan, and you take part in some of the story segments of Phantom Menace, but you also take on plot lines that weren't explored in the movie, like Obi-Wan saving the Queen. I think it does a good job of capturing that Star Wars spirit of adventure, even though the voice acting is pretty rough and the graphics are weak. The look of this game, when put against what else is shown off here in 2001, feels a generation behind. Some of the environments are nice, but the character models look like ugly blobs, indiscernible from each other, and it comes out feeling like it's a generation behind. There are some environments like Tatooine that are particularly bland and tough to look at, as well as a level that is full of fog and you can barely see. The gameplay saves this one though with great lightsaber combat. You swing with your right thumbstick and it gives this game a nice sense of precision. Cutting through enemies and leaping around is awesome, and there's a surprising amount of movement, and it feels like you can go anywhere with the giant leaps that this game features. Mix in a nice selection of force powers and you have a full package. Most of the places you go and the weird platforming challenges all feel unique when compared to other Star Wars games. It's got an undeniable flair to it that I love. It might be a bit stiff and odd, but it's an easy game to settle into, and I really love the ambition here. This is a really solid game. The final game of 2001 was Bloodwake, another Xbox exclusive that was published by Microsoft Game Studios and developed by Stormfront Studios. This is a boat vehicular combat game, so most people will say it's Twisted Metal on water, which works, but I'd say it's a lot more like Crimson Skies. I love this game though, and it's one of the many hidden gems the Xbox has to offer. In this game, you take your boat out, which is decked with guns and rockets, and you just kill tons of enemies that flow on the water at you. This game is a huge showcase for the power of the Xbox at the time with its water physics and look. The water looks insanely good in this game, and I'd say in the overall lifespan of the Xbox. This is some of the most fun wave physics you can find on the console. The way it'll toss your boat around is so much fun. Driving around in this game is simple and easy, But the game is far from easy. In its story mode, you will drive all across these huge arenas, sometimes doing stealthy missions or protecting boats, and some of these missions are downright tough. If you like a challenging but good game, this is one of them. The story isn't displayed the best here, with a lack of cutscenes other than some drawings, but the Asian-themed world shines through. The look and design of everything is nice, and it still remains a unique experience to this day. And I would say the multiplayer really shines here, with a ton of modes to play through, and there's something about vehicle combat games that just work with multiple people. It's always fast-paced and full of mayhem that makes for something to laugh and yell at with a group. Bloodwake is just one of those special Xbox games that sadly is overlooked today. I don't think its challenge is going to appeal to everyone, but I think it's well worth seeking out. And this game made a very unique end to the year for the Xbox. As a whole, 2001 gave us a lot of variety, and it bolstered the Xbox lineup so much. The launch had some amazing titles, but months later we were getting huge RPGs like Azurik, amazing horror games like Silent Hill, and some really awesome sports titles like Amped, and unique experiences like Bloodwake. There were so many great games for everyone at the end of 2001, and it really was an amazing time to be playing video games. But that does wrap it up for today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, it helps me out in the algorithm, and also comment below with any memories of any of these games, loved them or hate them. Everybody's opinion is important, and I love to hear from you. Subscribe to keep up with the retro Xbox content, and be sure to check out my second channel, Camp Extras, for more retro content. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel. But I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.